Good morning. And I wasn't going to cover this one because it's been covered in detail by quite a lot of people and many of them have covered it very well. But sometimes there's something that comes along that just has to be addressed. And this is one of those occasions because I've been sitting on this and watching the story grow and grow, and I've been getting more and more annoyed. And what I'm talking about is the Hong Kong protests, and specifically Activision Blizzard's approach to the streamer who actually made his own protest following a live stream. Now, just to put this in perspective, let's give a little bit of background information. The protests in Hong Kong started in April this year over a new extradition law which was going to allow for criminal suspects to be extradited to China. Many people feared that this would lead to unfair trials, among other things. But the protests have actually spread, and they now include calls for, and I picked this from the BBC, the withdrawal of the riot description used about protesters, amnesty for all arrested protesters, an independent inquiry into alleged police brutality. Alleged? I think it's pretty clear at this stage that there's quite a lot of police brutality going on, including someone who had their eye damaged and another person who was shot, but we'll get there in a minute. And they're also asking for universal suffrage for elections of the Chief Executive and Legislative Council, Hong Kong's parliament. China has actually controlled Hong Kong since 1997, and it actually took it over from the UK. And since then, Hong Kong has been run under a one country, two systems agreement that apparently guarantees a certain level of autonomy, or at least it should guarantee a certain level of autonomy. As we're seeing with these protesters, that autonomy is being encroached upon, and the protesters are rightly addressing that, and they're protesting against that. Currently, it's got its own judiciary and a separate legal system from mainland China, and those rights also include freedom of assembly and freedom of speech, which, again, are currently under threat. But those freedoms will actually come to an end in 2047, and that's because in 2047, China takes complete control of Hong Kong. And that leaves the future of the people living in Hong Kong right up in the air. And let's be honest, 2047 might seem like a long way away at the moment, but it's not. According to the BBC, the protests have become more violent and intensive as the protesters have reacted to what they perceive as overzealous policing, and you already know what I think about that, including the use of tear gas and riot police. There's also some indication that they've used criminal gangs, or at least the Chinese government, whoever it might be in control of this, has used criminal gangs to intimidate and attack protesters. So it's hardly surprising that protesters are getting more violent. The police have also used live rounds, and one protester was shot in the chest at point-blank range. So, all in all, it's a pretty scary and charged environment, with many protesters going out on the streets despite being genuinely in fear for their lives. And, I've not been in anything like this, but I was in London during the London riots. And I can tell you, even though I wasn't directly, involved in anything, I was actually travelling with my brother-in-law down to see a friend of his, and we were driving along the streets, and at one point the streets were completely empty and all you could see were police, and there was a almost crackling in the air. You could feel that something was about to kick off. It was bloody scary. And that wasn't even with the riots themselves, that was just the atmosphere surrounding it. So you can imagine what a lot of these people are going through. They must be extremely scared and extremely worried. And that's where Blizzard comes in. Yay, Blizzard. You probably know this already, but just in case you don't, a Hearthstone live streamer named Blitzchung, and I apologise if I get that wrong, he pulled on a mask in support of the Hong Kong protesters at the end of a Grandmasters match, which incidentally he won, and he shouted, "Liberate Hong Kong, revolution of our age," in support of the protesters. And the presenters of the event were even seen to duck down, and the stream then cut out and they went to a commercial break. And what did Blizzard do as a result of this? Did they say, oh, well, we don't really like him doing it, but hey, look, this is a dangerous situation. There's a lot of things going on. A lot of people want their freedoms. We'll let it pass. I mean, they didn't even have to make a statement. They could have just left it alone. Or they could have just given him a slap on the wrist or something. But no. No, that wasn't enough. They banned him from competing in the Hearthstone competition for a year, or any Hearthstone competition for a year, until October the 5th next year, stripped him of his prize money for winning the competition, and sacked the two presenters, who, as far as I can tell, didn't actually do anything in relation to the protest at all, and they were trying to hide down behind the desk. Apparently, all this was because Blitzchung broke the rules. And very interesting and vague rules they are too. And I'm going to quote them here. Here's the 2019 Hearthstone Grandmasters Official Competition Rules version 1.4, page 12, section 6.1.1. Engaging in any act that, in Blizzard's sole discretion, and remember that, brings you into public disrepute, offends a portion or group of the public, or otherwise damages Blizzard's image, will result in removal from Grandmasters and reduction of the player's prize total to 0, in addition to other remedies which may be provided for under the handbook and Blizzard's website terms. So, of course, this had absolutely nothing to do with the fact that Blizzard were worried about losing revenue in the very lucrative Chinese market because this might actually piss off Winnie the Pooh, eh, Blizzard? No, it's nothing to do with that, was it? When you look really closely at these rules, they're so vague and open to abuse that they'd be bloody laughable if they weren't so outright sinister. Certainly in this instance. The telling one is, as I said before, Blizzard's sole discretion. Basically, that means that they could ban anyone and strip them of prize money for absolutely anything at all. At their discretion. Just as well it's in there, though, because they'd be in a real quandary otherwise due to the fact that their own actions have brought them into public disrepute. Not to mention that a great many gamers, me included, are offended by the very names Blizzard and Activision as it stands. Just let me reiterate something here. The Hong Kong police have been firing live rounds at protesters. Just think about that for a moment. Live rounds. They actually shot a guy in the chest and put him in hospital. And that guy has been arrested for assaulting a police officer. What, did he attack the bullet with his chest or something? And who does Blizzard side with? Do they side with the guy who protested against what the police are doing? Did they side with the student who was shot? Did they side with the many Hong Kong citizens who've been injured protesting for the rights that most of us take for granted? And we shouldn't, incidentally, because when you take them for granted, that's when they get taken away from you. No. Activision Blizzard sided with the Chinese government, and they sought to censor genuine and valid protests, saying that it's the protester who is bringing the company into disrepute. Right. Well done, Blizzard. You've managed to display to the whole world that your moral centre is rotten to the core and your moral compass is so broken that you couldn't even find your own ass with it. At least there's some small glimmer of hope in all this, though. A little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. Because outside of Blizzard's headquarters, there's a large statue of an orc with the company values printed on its base. A small number of employees walked out on hearing the news of the ban, and they covered up 2 of the supposed company values. Think globally, and every voice matters. Unless it hits our bottom line, in which case it no longer matters at all. It does seem, though, that these employees actually care more for company values than the company itself. I just hope that they don't get sanctioned for what to me appears to be completely appropriate action in the face of such blatant hypocrisy by the company. We've known for a long time now that much of the AAA gaming industry is devoid of any moral backbone, favouring profits and growth over all else. But even in the current rancid climate, this is an all-time low. It takes a lot for me to be genuinely disgusted, but this manages it. Well done, Blizzard, and well done, Activision. You've managed to take a beloved company with seemingly decent values and replace them with avarice, cowardice, and a disregard for human rights. And there was me thinking the AAA gaming industry couldn't get any lower. What a bloody fool I was. Good luck to Blitzchung and the presenters who lost their jobs. Good luck to the Hong Kong protester who was shot. Good luck to all the protesters who are risking their safety and indeed their lives to defend the future of their country. Good luck to the Blizzard employees who had the moral fibre to stand up for what was right in the face of a morally bankrupt employer. And good luck to Activision Blizzard. You'll bloody well need it. Oh, sorry, did I say good luck? I meant fuck you and your rancid money-grabbing excuse for a company. I'm done. Speak in the next one. Bye.